Hello and welcome to the EdjSports NFL podcast, recapping the conference championship weekend. Championship Sunday was yesterday, and boy, was it a good one. I'm joined, as always, by our VP of Data Science here at EdjSports, Scott Brown. I'm your host, Ian O'Connor, Senior Data Analyst here at EdjSports. Scott, I'm sure you had a great time watching these two games yesterday. It was a lot of fun, a lot of excitement, as we've become accustomed to pretty much this whole season.
Yeah, a lot of excitement in yesterday's games. I mean, continuing a theme throughout the playoffs. We've just been really treated to some excellent games. It was definitely fun. Got to see an upset in that first game, which we'll get into here in just a minute. I also found out that the person who lives above me is a big Bengals fan, or apparently a big Bengals fan.
Yep.
So that was another fun revelation from yesterday. But yeah, I mean, good point. We just been really spoiled with loads of great games this playoffs, and yesterday was no different. Did you enjoy the games, Ian?
I did actually did watch the first game out before coming home, but watched with I've got some friends that are big Bengals fans, so it was a lot of fun. Even though Green Bay is not the one playing the Bengals, it was a lot of fun for them to see them excited during that game. First time since 1988 seasons, Bengals are now undefeated in AFC Championship games at 3-0, I believe. So it's been an awesome run for those Bengals. Before we dive into the biggest storylines from these games, the most impactful plays, the best decisions from the weekend, just want to remind you that you can catch this show every week on the EdjSports Podcast Network and on our EdjSports YouTube channel. We will not be here next Monday. Won't be covering anything from the Pro Bowl, but we will be back on Valentine's Day, the day after the Super Bowl, to break down the Super Bowl. And hopefully, and I imagine the way the season's gone, that will be a nail biter coming down with lots of impactful plays and perhaps some big decisions there. So just subscribe to those shows on any podcast platform of your choice. Please give us a 5-star review. Help us grow our audience and show up for more people there. Also, don't forget, we will have a coach rankings update this Wednesday with our Champion Gaming brand ambassador, Katie George. She and I will be discussing some of the coach hirings we've had so far, as well as looking at some of these decisions that we're going to talk about here today from the weekend. We'll cover a couple of those as well, and we'll look forward to the coaching matchup in the Super Bowl. So we'll just get right into it now. The biggest storylines, only 2 games, so you know what the storylines are. And even though the Bengals probably wouldn't consider themselves underdogs, especially Joe Burrow, it seems like he never thinks he's an underdog. And he's kind of shown that that's probably true. And Cincinnati went into Arrowhead after beating the Chiefs in Cincinnati in Week 17. And now they go on the road coming off against the Chiefs team, coming off one of the best games in NFL history against the Bills last week. Got down big early, really wasn't looking good for the Bengals. They trailed 21-10 at the half. And the reason it was only 21-10, Scott, there was a moment there at the end of the half that everyone's talking about. Those 3 points, they're nearly guaranteed 3 points on a field goal that would have been about 19 yards, would have been huge, would have gone a long way to getting the Chiefs back to the Super Bowl. But deciding to not kick a field goal, not only on the second, so they got the first and goal at the 1. They were kind of run a play, scrambled out. Mahomes just kind of throws it into the dirt, throws it away, so there's no turnover. Gets second and goal at the 1, 5 seconds left, no timeouts. Throws kind of a little swing pass out to Tyreek Hill that looked like maybe his second option, maybe third option coming out of the backfield or from the other side. And he stopped short of the goal line. They've got no timeouts, so it goes to halftime. 21-10, they get no points. That was kind of mind-boggling to me, especially with Andy Reid, who's been very good with time management and really decision-making over the course of his career. So really surprising to see that. I'm sure you feel the same way or felt the same way when you were watching that.
Yeah. It definitely, I think, felt like a very big momentum swing in the game, and also just big from the mechanics of the game. Kansas City, if they're able to cash in a touchdown there, pretty much ices it. It really burns to come away from that spot with no points. I think having first and goal from the 1 with 9 seconds left, plenty of time for 2 plays for two specific types of plays, right? Where so you don't maybe have a lot of time to scramble around back there or anything like that. But with obviously somebody like Mahomes, excellent quarterback and decision maker back there, you expect them to be able to get 2 reasonable plays off. Worst case scenario, there's 1 second left on the clock for you to kick your field goal and then off you go. And I mean, I think that I don't know. It's hard to know, right? What the plan was on the sideline, whether or not they were all in on going for it, touchdown or bust. But I think from thinking about it and looking back at it, it just it probably hurts you a lot more to walk away there without any points as opposed to um, going all in for the touchdown. I think we've looked at situations like this in the past, and one of the real benefits of going for it down here on the goal line, like on fourth down, is that you set yourself up on subsequent possessions to be in a good position than you otherwise would have, right? So their offense comes out and takes the ball over, backed all the way up. Those drives are usually not very productive. That usually sets you up nicely on when you get the ball back with good field position. So that's not at play here, obviously, right at the end of the half. And so yeah, I think this one just really winds up stinging the Chiefs, and as far as Monday morning quarterbacking goes, it really hurts when we see that the margin of the game winds up being 3 points like it was.
Yeah, and to your point, it seems reasonable to think they can get 2 plays off. The first play took 4 seconds, 5 seconds left, maybe run something a little bit quicker. But when they got set up down there, first and goal at the 1, their win probability was at 96.8. So Bengals are at 3.2 at that point. As it played out, basically it's a worst case scenario for Kansas City with no points added. They dropped to 92.7, giving Cincinnati 7.3% chance to win, more than doubling their win probability. A touchdown would have put them at 97.5. A field goal would have even gotten them to 95.4. So still a drop down from that 96.8 from when they started at first and goal. That's kind of assuming based on that Chiefs offense that they're going to get, a touchdown on 2 or 3 plays. But even, with the field goal, they don't drop much. But so, yeah, to your point, a big momentum swing, a big letdown. And then coming out of halftime, the Bengals get a stop in 3 plays. Chiefs go 3 and out, really unable to capitalize on getting the ball first. And, it allowed really the Bengals to get back into this game. The defense played really well, but also the Chiefs, Mahomes really didn't look like themselves, almost like they were kind of chasing points after they missed. Patrick Mahomes was trying to do a little too much. And coming down at the beginning of the fourth quarter, though, they got a little bit of a break. Joe Burrow's pass was intercepted near midfield. It was a tie game, 21-21 at this point. The Bengals had stormed back early in the fourth quarter, 14 minutes left. It's our 4th most impactful play of the weekend, 17.7% drop in win probability for Cincinnati. But again, Kansas City was unable to capitalize on the interception. And then on the Bengals' next possession, Evan McPherson would give them the lead 24-21. But then Mahomes would get the ball in the final moments in regulation, as we saw last week. Scott, this is really not a good situation for a defense when Mahomes has the ball at the end of the game with a chance to win it.
Yeah, I know. We were treated to a surprise in this one because it just felt inevitable, right? Where here are the Chiefs, even if they sort of fumbled the lead or they find themselves trailing in a big moment, like that offense is just too good. They're gonna turn it on when they need to turn it on and make things happen. They're just too good, right? And we've seen it time and time again. But
And they had more than 13 seconds this week.
yeah. They had more than 13 seconds this week. So, this should be easy in comparison, right? Yeah, just really, really a shocker. I think you mentioned Patrick Mahomes kind of didn't look like himself in that second half. Totally agree. I think that was clear. Hard to know, right? To what extent maybe that was just his own letdown, or how much did that Bengals defense really step up? Because they were pressuring him very, very constantly on every pass play. I think he was sacked 4 times in the game, and it seemed like on plenty of other occasions he was not allowed to hold onto the ball. Let his receivers get open downfield. He was forced off the spot or forced to move in the pocket, and it just really disrupted that offense. So I think there's really a lot of credit that deserves to be heaped onto that Bengals defense. Both for that end of first half stop, and then just really making life difficult in the second half, holding the Chiefs to 3 points over the course of that half. And yeah, especially when that Chiefs have the billing that they do, the reputation that they do, to be able to come up and perform like that in that second half, I think is really big. They had that really big stop at the end of the first half. They had another really big one at the end of the second half too, right, to hold them to the field goal to force overtime instead of giving up a touchdown, which would have put the game on ice.
Yeah, and it looked like they were going to give up more than the touchdown. About a minute and a half left. Chiefs had 3rd and 2 at the Cincy 7. getting down plenty of time. Mahomes hits Kelsey for a first down. They get 2 yards down, first and goal at the 5-yard line. A little over a minute left. You just assume that they're going to get in. They've got 3 tries to get in, a field goal unless they go for the win. But 3 tries, so that first down conversion was a 15% increase in win probability. But then, like you said, Mahomes was under a ton of pressure, almost kind of looked like it wasn't as bad, I think, as the Super Bowl last year, but he was scrambling a ton back there. And there were times where he ran around the backfield, changed directions, was running for, 6-7 seconds, and either was able to get away, make a throw, or get sacked a couple times. And this was one of them. The third most impactful play came with 39 seconds left. So they had 3rd and goal at the 9-yard line. Mahomes is pressured, and they did it, I think, with really minimal extra pressure. Only sending four guys, I think. They had a lot of guys dropped into coverage. They may have sent some guys on a couple of those, but they did a really good job because anytime he was scrambling, he had no one to throw to. And this was one of those situations, the 3rd and goal. Gets sacked for a loss of 17 yards and really got lucky. He fumbled the ball as he was getting hit, looked like maybe trying to change hands. But one of his linemen was able to recover it because that would have ended the game. Instead, the clock runs down, 3 seconds left. They kick the field goal. But that sack was a 19.6% drop, but really could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, could have been a lot worse. I mean, what a crazy sequence of events. I mean, just backing up for a second to tell me that the Chiefs would have 1st and goal, at their Cincinnati 5-yard line, minute and a half left, and Cincinnati has no timeouts. So basically, Kansas City is free rolling at that point. It's almost a lock that they're going to at least send this one into overtime. That offense is so good, right? They just need 5 yards to score a touchdown. It just feels like inevitable that they're going to be able to basically score a touchdown with little to no time left, and this game's going to be virtually over. And man, what a crazy subsequent series of events here. Mahomes getting sacked twice in a row, and that last one, man, I mean, that could have ended the game, as you mentioned. If I think it was Joe Tooney, if he doesn't come up with the ball, the game is over. So just an absolutely wild swing there on that series of plays to go from, Chiefs in such a dominant position with that offense, to be able to manage the game, the clock down, score a touchdown, and basically ice it up, versus, having to scramble for a loose ball, to recover it, so that they can kick a field goal with 3 seconds left to send it into overtime. And, the field goal, Harrison Butker, certainly one of the best kickers in the league, got a little bit more than he bargained for, based on where they started, wound up being a 44-yard field goal, but was able to knock it right through the uprights and send it into OT, where, we would see the Chiefs yet again wind up in an overtime game in the playoffs, back-to-back weeks, which, featured some more important plays in that overtime.
Yeah, and you mentioned a 44-yarder would have been, even if, they'd gotten incompletion on that 3rd and goal, would have been, only like a 28-yarder, but losing those 17 yards takes it all the way back and makes it more difficult. But Butker, good kicker, kicks it through, as you mentioned, sends it to overtime. And of course, the Bengals called heads, and it was tails, and the Chiefs got the ball first in overtime yet again. So everyone thinking, all right, here we go again. Chiefs are going to go down. They're going to win this with a touchdown. Joe Burrow's not going to touch the ball again. That's not what happened. It didn't look good, but the Bengals came up with an interception. Surprisingly, in this overtime too, we've got the 3rd and 10 at the Kansas City 25 with 14:55 left on the clock. Those first 2 plays took only 5 seconds off the clock. There's a ton of in overtime. You get 15 minutes, but still, that was just interesting. A couple quick plays, 5 seconds, it's already 3rd down. And Mahomes throws deep, and it's tipped. Tyreek Hill, I believe, was going for the catch. Got his hands on it, but also the defender, I forget who the defender was that knocked it away, but Von Bell comes up with the interception. I thought the ball fell to the ground. I looked away and then looked back up, and they're still running around. Ends up being 24% win probability decrease for the Chiefs, the most impactful play of the weekend. As we know, Scott, the Bengals would drive the ball down the field, get really close. I thought Joe Mixon was going to break one for a touchdown. They're cutting back, but got tripped up a bit. But at that point, they were down, I think, to the 12. Those pretty much guaranteed. I think Bengals fans were thinking for Evan McPherson once they got inside even the 20-yard line. He's been so good this year now. I think 11 for 11 in the postseason, the most made field goals in NFL history without a miss in a single postseason. I believe, if I heard that correctly. So really, just an awesome game all around. And the Bengals, you said we were talking before. I don't think anyone expected them to be here. Even Bengals fans, I don't know if any of them would tell you they expected to be there. If so, I think it'd be safe to say they're probably lying that they thought they were going to make it all the way to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But good for that fan base. I mean, I think it's their third Super Bowl appearance, so it's oftentimes, I remember growing up with some pretty rough teams over there in Cincinnati. Watching those teams. So it's good to see some success return to that fan base. And yeah, I would be super excited. That's the great thing about football is it's all settled on the field in one game. So I mean, they got a great shot. And to secure their spot. Yeah, they definitely have a fighting chance going into the game 2 weeks from now, and can't wait to see whether or not they're able to pull it out.
Yeah, and being where we are here in Louisville, I'm from Louisville, grew up here, so having all the different fan bases we have here, not having a pro sports team, the Bengals are one of those that has a pretty heavy footprint here in Louisville. So it's really fun to see for those fans here. A lot of friends that are Bengals fans. Really excited for them. And now moving on to the other game that features their opponent, who I think people maybe didn't expect to be here as much, but probably a little bit more so than the Bengals, with the Rams having been so good most of the season. Also coming in as the 4 seed, but a very good team that we knew could make it. And with the Packers losing, them knocking off the Buccaneers last week, had a good shot to get there. But this one was tough again. They lost to the 49ers twice already this season. Hard to beat a team 3 times in a year, they say, and that's exactly what the Rams were trying to do, and that's what they did. They're at home looking to follow the Buccaneers, become the second home team ever, or second team to ever host the Super Bowl or play in the Super Bowl in their home stadium. And I guess we'll go pretty quickly to the third quarter. Really not a ton of decisions, not a ton of huge impactful plays from this game until we get into the second half. But they have our best decision of the week from Sean McVay. Third quarter, 8 minutes left, 4th and 1 at the San Francisco 43. They're down at this point. I think it was 10-7. Deciding to go for it. 4th and 1. I think it was 4th and less than 1, actually. It's a 5% increase in pre-snap win probability. That's quite a bit, not the first half, but still early in the third quarter. That's a good amount of win probability on the line there. Not able to get it. And this is where Sean McVay uses his first time out in a challenge that didn't look like it was ever going to succeed from the start. But the decision here to go for it was the right call. Maybe not the challenge, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a slam dunk. Obviously, playing results didn't work out, but 4th and 1, the conversion rate on these things is very high, especially when you have such a good offense. And they're at the San Fran 43, so field goal is not really a reasonable option here at about 60-ish yards. And yeah, punting doesn't feel good either because to beat the dead horse, field position can only be swung, maybe 20, 30 yards. So there's really not a whole lot to gain from there, to gain from that decision, I should say. And yeah, McVay, we malign him. I think, he's probably deserved a lot of that. He tends to be a pretty passive, 4th down play caller, but he made the right decision here. And I think that's in large part to all of the factors basically being at play to really support this decision. I mean, the conversion rate on 4th and inch is super high. Yeah, I think it's pretty easy, I guess is what I'm saying. So, good for him to make the right decision. I think it was pretty easy, pretty obvious one. Winds up being really the best, decision that we saw in either of yesterday's games. But once again, really not a whole lot to write home about as far as heaping credit on McVay here. This is just basic stuff at this point, where we see teams go for it all the time here. And yeah, so I mean, I guess good for McVay, but yeah, not too impressed, I guess would be my final point on this one.
Yeah, I think this was the first I don't remember if it was the exact stat that I saw. It was 4th and 1 or maybe QB sneak from Matt Stafford that he didn't convert in his career. If I'm remembering that correctly, I'd seen it like 14 for 14 at one point. So really surprising for him not to pick this up. But McVay still made the right call. His timeout and challenge usage maybe not so good, and it will be highly scrutinized. If they had lost, it would be even more highly scrutinized because it was awful. And that kind of brings us to our next Next decision, looking at Kyle Shanahan's decision, who has failed these fourth down decisions over and over again this season. Got away with it against the Cowboys a couple weeks ago on that 4th and 1 where he chose to punt. This time, 10 minutes left, 10:01, 4th and 2 at the Rams 45. So on third down, I believe it was Kyle Juszczyk that was called short. Looked like maybe he fumbled. The ball came loose. Well, Shanahan sends out the punt team. McVay decides to challenge it. He's got one challenge left, one timeout left, 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, trailing by 3. Decides to challenge it. The challenge fails. Not only does he lose his last challenge, loses his last timeouts. They have no timeouts left in a close game with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Not only that, though, Shanahan does something interesting, maybe. I don't know. I'll let you talk about this because I know you've got a couple thoughts on how it played out and how it could have played out as well.
Yeah. So that's the perfect setup. So yeah, Kyle Shanahan, after the challenge, sends the offense onto the field. 4th and 2 with about 10 minutes left in the fourth at the Rams 45. Man, what a swing there if you're McVay. I mean, in the moment I would have called it perhaps the worst challenge of all time. You know, based on all this, the factors that we just highlighted, to basically be, you're using your last challenge, so you need to make sure that you're getting the most out of that. You'd be burning your last timeout, so you'd be without any timeouts, with 10 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter of a huge game. That's close in score, so like timeouts are likely to matter down the stretch. And not only that, it appeared for a minute that you were inducing your opponent, Kyle Shanahan, who's notorious for making bad fourth down decisions, into the right decision.
Give him
By
2 minutes to think about, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Give him all the time in the world to find the right play. Maybe the one play on the sheet that he feels good about going for it on fourth down, because we've seen him punt over and over again in these spots. And yeah, so when that offense rolled out on the field, I just thought that was hilarious. Of course, I wiped my smile off my face quite quickly when it was apparent that they had no intention of running a play. They, let the clock wind all the way down. Sort of tried to draw the. I don't even know if this actually ever works, but teams still do it. Sort of like icing the kicker, where they just let the clock run all the way down. With the hard count, try to draw the defense off sides. Doesn't work. Take a delay of game penalty, get moved back 5 yards, then punt the ball. Basically the idea there being that it doesn't really, negatively affect you at all because you're well within, the range of your punter, or your punter has already sort of taken something off of it anyway, based on where you are in the field. So just another 5 yards just basically allows him to go down a club, so to speak, and not have to do that. So yeah, it was just, comedy of errors here on this play. Really, really questionable decision by McVay. It's one thing on that first play, right? To that we talked about a moment ago on the quarterback sneak, to challenge that one, and maybe to do it frivolously, where you think like, oh, there's probably not a high likelihood that I'm going to win the challenge, but if I do win it, the gain is huge, right? Because maintaining possession is a huge deal in football. We all know this, so that's clear. Like I can get behind that to a degree. It was his first time out used at the time and first challenge used at the time, so it doesn't really impact him too negatively from that standpoint. So okay, like that makes sense. This play just does not make a lot of sense. I mean, it's already going to be fourth down against the Niners, who they love to punt in these situations. It was pretty clear that they had the special teams unit on, immediately after the play that, looked like they were signaling their intent to punt. So you're going to get the ball back, it seemed. So, whether or not you got the ball back via the punt or via the fumble recovery, the only difference is the field position, which I think basically is, maybe 30 yards or something like that, a field position. Not that big of a deal, relative to just getting, possession back at all. And it just doesn't really seem like the benefit here was worth it. So using a challenge like this in a speculative fashion, where it erases your last time out, it erases your last possible challenge at the end, with a whole 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, man, just really, really questionable. I think, yeah, I'm definitely standing behind all the other fans analyzers of the game who really question that decision making. Seems like not so great use of game resources there to help you win. Winds up not being a big deal, and they don't get stung by it, but man, just really questionable. Um, and yeah, I know, but going on this one, I mean, this one definitely was one of the more interesting decisions all weekend. I sort of breezed by the part where Kyle Shanahan decides to punt. It seems so played out at this point. It was obviously a really bad error, 4th and 2, even leading by 3 in this one. Yeah, you're at the Rams 45-yard line, so those alternative decisions, neither of them are very good, kicking a field goal or punting it. So yeah, turns into a 5.1% error. I think Kyle Shanahan's good for one of these just about every week, and I think we can move on from that part of it. Not lest we repeat ourselves over and over again.
Yeah, and you mentioned the 5%, not as big as the 17% we had for him against Dallas. Looking at it based on the gain versus or the risk versus the reward, required conversion rate comes out to around 43.5, 44% on this one. Their expected conversion rate there is close to about 56% on a 4th and 2. So not as the evidence, I guess, isn't as overwhelmingly in favor of the go as it was in that Dallas game, based on the fact there's still 10 minutes left. You're winning at that point. A lot of time left to play, but still going for it was the optimal decision there. And Shanahan failed that test again, and it came back to bite him this time. It wasn't a direct loss, after this play, but the Rams were able to tie it up with a field goal. 49ers punted again and then got another field goal to win it. And that brings us to basically what ended the game. Jimmy Garoppolo, who's good for one of these really mind-numbingly bad passes from him, it seems like every single week, and this is no exception. 3rd and 13, their own 22, a minute 20 left, down by 3. So they've got to make something happen, but you can't take the risk that he did here. He's in the backfield. Aaron Donald is about to bring him down for a sack. He kind of gets twisted around, and Garoppolo just kind of like throws it backwards behind him, looking to hit. I think it was Hasty. Went off his hands, a high pass, went off his hands, intercepted, taking them from 21% down to 0%. San Francisco had, I think, just one timeout left, could only stop the clock one time. And the Rams had the ball at the 14-ish yard line of San Francisco. So this was it. Again, 21%, the second most impactful play of the week behind only Patrick Mahomes' interception. So just really bad decision, which, we've seen Garoppolo be very good. And I think this is the question around him. There was all the talk on social media last night about if the 49ers win the Super Bowl, what do they do with Jimmy Garoppolo? Is he still the quarterback there? Because they just drafted Trey Lance at number 3 overall, expected to be the successor. Jimmy Garoppolo has been one of, I think, the most polarizing quarterbacks in the league over the last few years, because he got him to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Was very good. He has these moments. He's led them to the conference championship this year when they weren't expected to be there. Has these moments where he makes really good throws, but even in the games where he looks good, he has a handful of throws that he misses. And then he has decisions like this that are just, you wonder what is going through his mind. So it's going to be an interesting offseason, but it seems like we have this conversation after every win. And, the point is, and Deebo Samuel tweeted out saying, all the questions around him, but look at his record. Like, he wins, that's all that matters. I would say, at that point, over however many seasons he's been there, they keep winning. They win, they get far, but is he good enough to win the Super Bowl for them? I think is the main question, and we'll see where he ends up next year. But really, just a bad loss when they got a chance. It looked like they were going to repeat what they did in Week 18, where they drove down to tie the game to go to overtime and then win it to get into the playoffs. This one did not play out the same way.
Yeah, it did not play out the same way. I think. Yeah, I think obviously it was an awful interception. But whereas I think, sometimes we see Jimmy Garoppolo make questionable decisions, where maybe he's holding on to the ball too long or really, tries to fit it into too tight of a spot downfield. Here, I think he was just running for his life, right? I don't know. I don't know there was much thinking going on, if at all, because you got Aaron Donald bearing down on you. And yeah, they really, I guess he could have, maybe just tried to, I guess he was trying to throw it away, but maybe, hopefully throw it into the sideline as opposed to on the field of play. But yeah, he was running for his life back there. I think that Rams defense, obviously very, very, very good, talented Rams defense.
I think that was their first sack of the day too, coming at a great time.
Oh yeah. And, just absolutely not allowing Jimmy Garoppolo to be comfortable, look downfield, and hit his receivers. It's definitely been interesting to see how these games play out, where we see teams in these similar situations just like absolutely crush it here. Throw the ball downfield, no problem. Be able to get in field goal range or maybe even score a touchdown here. But this one was not to be. The Rams defense stepped up in a big way, and they closed it out when they needed to desperately, and now they're headed off to the Super Bowls yet again. So props to that Rams team, and especially that Rams defense, for coming up big in a big moment.
Yeah, back at it. It looks like it actually was. I think their second sack, if that counts as a sack, but coming up big there. Yeah, your point. Just trying to make something happen. I think taking a sack, looking at it afterwards, taking a sack wouldn't have been the end of the world because they still would have had the ball. It would have been 4th and long, but still would have had a shot. But yeah, Rams back in the Super Bowl. We'll see. Last time they were in the Super Bowl was against the Patriots. Obviously, the Patriots was Brady and Belichick's last Super Bowl together in New England, and we had a punt and field goal fest on 4th downs in that one. A lot of 4th and shorts. Had some like 4th and 4, 4th and 5 at the opponent's 45 at midfield. So we'll see if McVay does that again. We saw him be aggressive here on that 4th and 1. That one's kind of a no-brainer. We've seen him be really don't know the best way to put it. Just you never know what he's going to do. We've seen him go both ways. He's going to need to be a little bit better with his timeout usage, but Zach Taylor on the other side is similar in the 4th down situations where he'll go for it. Sometimes he won't, and other times where you think he should, 4th and short field goals. So will definitely be interesting to see how the Super Bowl plays out, not only on the field, but with these two coaches as well. So there you have it, Bengals, Rams, Super Bowl. As you said, Scott, I don't think many people would have imagined this. One interesting bet that I saw, I think someone, I don't know if you saw it, they shared it in our group for our company Slack messages, was the bet that someone parlayed the exact score of both games. They bet Cincy would win 27-24, and then Sanford or LA 20-17, betting $20 to win $500,000, which is absolutely insane. Like the odds, I saw someone reply say, no sports book should ever, let someone bet on something like that because they lose so much money. It's like, but how often is someone going to win a bet where it's going to pay out over $500,000 on a $20 bet? Like that's just insane. And very lucky that there wasn't a pick six at the end on that interception because it was close. They got down to the 14, made a couple moves there, could have lost that, but just an unbelievably lucky, very lucky bet. It's hard, as someone else said, try picking 2 correct scores, let alone parlaying them. Just try and pick 2 exact scores of an NFL game.
Yeah. I mean, that fan that is worried for the sports book, I think they're in a pretty lonely state. I think that the sports books are they're big boys and girls. They can price these things. But yeah, good for that fan. That's awesome. Turn $20 into $500,000 like that. Pretty sweet. Yeah, and I think in general these bets are not very good, but you don't get to see all the misses, all the swings and misses. But man, is it really cool when you see somebody bink a parlay to exacta like that on those 2 games, and yeah, that's pretty sweet. I always enjoy seeing stuff like that. It's cool to see.
Very impressive. Very jealous of that guy there, that guy or gal who placed that. But big win for them. That takes us to our top 5s. We usually run through. We've covered everything in the show already. All 5 of the impactful plays, the best decision, the worst decision. So we won't roll through those again. But we can't leave without talking about the biggest news from the weekend that dropped on Saturday, that Tom Brady plans to retire. It hasn't been officially announced. That plans to retire is a very important part there because he has not come out. His agent, I believe, came out and said he has not made a decision yet, has not announced a decision. But assuming this is true, really the end of an era, the greatest quarterback of all time. I guess that's the way, I don't really know how to put it, just greatest quarterback. Got 7 Super Bowls, I believe. Was it 6 with New England, 1 with Tampa Bay? Really, like kind of unofficially, I said to my friends in our group message when they sent it, kind of like the end of a childhood. Like for me, coming up, Tom Brady was in the league, 2000. I was 8 years old, first starting to really, that's when I first remember football games. So really just kind of the end of a long storied career for Tom Brady.
Yeah, and it'll never get old, seeing that clip of him in the combine with his shirt off, like looking like a yeah,
A
I'll leave it
great
to the
specimen of an
listeners.
athlete.
Yeah, 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 like, turning to the side or whatever like that, and like the grainy footage of, the tuck game and like all that's, celebrating at the various Super Bowls, in the early 2000s. For our the Zoomers in our audience, yes, that is actually those videos are real. The quality of them is not great. It is what it is. But yeah, certainly, turning to the serious side of things, man, what a great career. I think, Tom Brady really deserves many of the labels that he has earned over the years as one of the greatest ever to do it, or perhaps the greatest to ever do it. Certainly, the success in Super Bowl speaks for itself. 7 rings, that's just amazing. Was able to do it. I think it was really cool to see last year him able to do it outside of New England, because I think there was always that a bit of that conversation amongst fans. Is Tom Brady, or what happens to him, or how good is he outside of and independent of that organization, that team, his head coach, Bill Belichick, for so many years. And yeah, I think really, really cool to see him be able to do that last year in the way that he did, going down to Tampa Bay and bringing a Super Bowl there. So yeah, just, really, I don't really have anything interesting to say on this apart from, yeah, thanks, Tom. It's been fun to watch you play over all these years, even as a kid, as you mentioned, Ian. I was a kid too, and watching Tom Brady play, and yeah, we're gonna miss him. It'll be interesting to see how the league moves on without its biggest star, I think, and if that indeed winds up, being the way this plays out. As you mentioned, there's been various things coming out of his camp that, oh no, he hasn't officially retired yet. So yeah, we'll just have to sit and wait and see what winds up happening. ESPN is standing behind their reporting that this is a done deal. So yeah, we'll just have to sit tight. I'm sure. Hopefully, we'll get some clarity here in the next couple of days.
Yeah, I mean, growing up a non-Patriots fan was always a Tom Brady hater, but over the last 4 or 5 years watching, like you said, what he's done going to Tampa Bay and just kind of seeing the more of the as he's done his partnerships and marketing and branding and like as a person, seems like a fun guy and really kind of will be cool to see kind of what he does after football. Obviously, only 44 years old, and you see what Michael Jordan's done after his playing career and all these guys. So it'll be kind of cool to see where he goes from here. What happens with Gronk? I think it's come out that he's said a couple times that he would only want to play with Tom Brady. So if that's the end for Tom, it could be the end for Gronk too. Another awesome guy who just loves the game and and just makes it fun to watch. Those two guys together have been great. So yeah, if this is the end, then we'll see what's to come for Tampa Bay, who will be their quarterback next year. Kind of leads you to wonder, kind of going into our next thing we're going to talk about just briefly with coaching hires, is looking at Aaron Rodgers. What does he maybe have more of an inclination to stay in Green Bay now that one of the top quarterbacks in the NFC is gone, leaving Matt Stafford there in LA still. San Francisco, who knows what's going to happen there. So maybe an easier path to the Super Bowl now staying there. But his offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, has been hired on in Denver over the weekend. Matt Eberflus, I believe is Matt Eberflus from the Colts, has been hired. I'm drawing a blank on where he's to coach in
Bears.
Chicago. Yep, the
Yeah,
Bears.
the Bears. Yep.
So
Yep.
him, a couple of guys getting first time coaching experience.
Yeah, sorry. It's going to be a lot of fun learning how to pronounce that last name. God bless you, Ian, for getting out ahead of it. And I'm not even going to try and embarrass myself. But yeah, well, I mean, no comment. I'll just we'll wait and see it over here as the Bears rooting section.
Yep, and we've got Brian Daboll for the Giants, who has done a really good job there in Buffalo with Josh Allen. So he'll be tasked with helping develop Daniel Jones a little bit more. Josh McDaniels was hired by the Raiders, so getting his second shot at being a head coach, staying in the AFC West like he did last time with the Broncos, now with the Raiders. And then surprisingly, the surprising news from last week, I think it was on Tuesday after we recorded this, was Sean Payton resigning or retiring, I guess, but still maybe. Still, I think there's some expectation that he'll be back in a few years. But that Saints opening or that Saints head coaching job is now open. So it'll be interesting to see where they go from there Looking for really a quarterback and a head coach now, it seems, with Taysom Hill and Trevor Siemian there. So it'll be interesting to see where they go from here on out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear to me what Sean Payton. I mean, maybe you were surprised, but I think it's pretty clear. Sean Payton's got to get out on the road and promote that movie Home Team.
That's right.
That's coming to Netflix in 2022. They say art imitates life, and now now it'll be life imitating art when he comes back to coach. They can do the sequel. So I think that's probably what's on his mind. Yeah. So if you're interested in checking out the Sean Payton biopic there, where he goes and coaches his son's football team. He's played by Kevin James. You can go check that out on Netflix. No, we are not an affiliate. We are not being paid by them to promote
it's not
this.
an ad.
Yeah, I actually had to double when somebody shared this news with me that this was actually a real thing. I had to like, go check this on the internet to make sure that I wasn't, being deceived. And yes, it is indeed a real thing. So you can go. If you didn't know about it, you're welcome. Now you do.
He and Kevin James can go on tour together now, and no one's even going to be able to tell them apart.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think there's still a few vacancies. The one that pops in my head is down in Jacksonville. Interesting situation there. Looks like from some of the reports I had read that Byron Leftwich was being tabbed, the offensive coordinator and former quarterback. Actually played, I think, in Tampa. No, yeah. Did he play in Tampa? He might have.
Jacksonville.
He he played in Jacksonville, and now he's the offensive coordinator on the Bucks. Yeah, they've identified him as the candidate that they want for that job. But some interesting discussions apparently going down over who will be the GM there, and apparently Leftwich not wanting to work with Trent Baalke. So
along with a lot of the fans down there too, I believe.
Yeah. I remember seeing some videos about that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. I can't think. There's got to be a few other vacancies that are escaping me right now. About the Vikings. They still need to find their head coach. So
I think they're interviewing the Rams offensive coordinator and defensive coordinators, Kevin O'Connell and Raheem Morris today, I believe I saw. So they hired both of them before hiring their GM. So them, then the Dolphins and Texans as well.
Dolphins and Texans. That's right. So, I think going into that Vikings job, I think would be the one that looks most appealing to me if I were a prospective head coach. I think you have the most to work with there. You don't have to do a full rebuild or anything like that. That definitely have good talent there on the offensive side of the ball. Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and then they have always had a good defense now for many years. So that would be my pick, I think. And then I think those respective situations both in Houston and Miami are very interesting and probably tied together to some degree based on the Deshaun Watson situation. So both of those teams have it's been rumored for some time now that they have been in advanced discussions over a trade with for Deshaun Watson, where the Texans would ship him down to South Beach into Miami to play for the Dolphins. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Who knows how exactly that will go down. I bet any coach heading into either one of those situations really wants to know what's the plan around Watson. He obviously has a lot of controversy surrounding him, and obviously accused of doing some pretty reprehensible things. Sat out this year. Putting that all aside, without comment on guilt or innocence, he's certainly one of the top young talents in the league at quarterback. I think definitely, at least in my opinion, every bit as good as Mahomes, which some may disagree with. But yeah, he's just really dynamic back there, really able to throw the ball accurately downfield and make things happen with his legs. So just really special athlete playing quarterback, and really, really skilled. So it'll be interesting to see how that whole situation pans out. I mean, obviously, there's a lot to be sorted out there, and like most of the other fans, I don't really know any more than the next person, but certainly hope to get some clarity on that this offseason as well.
Yep. So probably some news to come this week on those head coaching hires. I'm sure coaches or teams want to get those filled as soon as possible. So we will have updates on those after the Super Bowl. any advanced or initial thoughts on the Super Bowl? I know you and I were kind of discussing the line a little bit beforehand. Didn't really surprise me. That's kind of, I figured it would be around 4 or 5 points in favor of Los Angeles. You have any initial thoughts on that matchup aside from what we've already kind of mentioned as we're going through those recaps?
Nothing really stands out at me at this point. For our listeners, it looks like the line opened up at LA -3.5 and has since moved to LA -4. I think this looks quite reasonable to me. I mean, if I disagreed with this line, I wouldn't be by much. I think it seems like the Rams are a pretty solid favorite, but not certainly the Bengals are no more of an underdog in this one than they were in their last game against the Chiefs. I think the Rams would have been an underdog against the Chiefs as well. So, it'll be interesting to see, as always, like how this line moves over the course of the build up to the game. Um, you know, I yeah, my opinion would just be seems kind of reasonable. I think once you kind of get this far into the season, both these teams feel like a known quantity. There's some injury stuff going on, but not to acute, like really key players like the quarterbacks. And obviously 2 weeks is a long time for guys to get ready for the game. So yeah, I think obviously the most interesting bit of trivia for this one is that the Rams get to play at home, which is pretty cool. For the second year in a row, we get to see this happen after having never seen it happen for like 50 some years. So that's kind of interesting.
Is there any, out of curiosity, I don't know, since it's only happened now twice, I don't know if you remember from last year, is there any kind of home field edge given to the Rams in the line? I know internally we've talked a lot about how the Super Bowl, it's not truly, even for the Buccaneers, not truly home field because there are a ton of people that come just for the experience. So maybe, and we saw last night even against the 49ers, it really wasn't a true home field advantage because they even kind of had to go to a silent count at one point. But didn't know if you had anything on that from last year, if you remember, if there is, from what you can tell, any kind of edge given.
Yeah, that's a great point. This is going to be a really cop out of an answer, but it's really hard to know. I mean, there's the precedent for this is literally one game last year, and it's really tough, right? I think like all the things that you mentioned are like the right things to think about, which are, a good chunk of the seats in the stands are, basically people that were already going to the game no matter what. To the extent that those tickets eventually get sold on the secondhand market and wind up into avid Rams fans is hard, impossible to know, really hard to know for so and I think another thing as well is that that Rams fan base was really maligned, if you remember, in that Week 18 game against the Niners, where the Niners fans greatly outnumbered them in the stands and were making a lot of noise. A lot was made of this in the media by some of the players on the Rams, including Stafford. And then, like you mentioned, we saw it last night again, where I think things were definitely different in this one, where they had more of a home field advantage, but it certainly wasn't huge. I think this is just my opinion without commenting on how the market views things. Like certainly a home field advantage in Los Angeles is a lot less from the standpoint of fan noise, crowd noise, and that sort of thing, as compared to like Green Bay, right? Like you have to be the diehest of diehard fans to get on the road to support your team in Lambeau in January. So, that just puts up more of a barrier, right? And I think makes home field big for the Packers there. So yeah, I mean, I think I think there's probably not a lot to the home. I think it's probably convenient, right, for fans and convenient and nice for the players there in Los Angeles. But I would argue that it's probably not a massive home field advantage for them. And it's hard to know exactly what the market's thinking or how the market's pricing it. But my guess is that's reflected to a degree where they're probably discounting home field advantage a little bit. I think that seems like a reasonable take. And home field is definitely more of a, estimating it's more of an art than a science, I'd say. And it's something that I think has changed through time as well, which we've talked about. So, I think more of an interesting bit of trivia maybe than a really impactful aspect of the game.
And one other useful piece of trivia, or maybe not necessarily useful piece of trivia, but just interesting fact that I had seen yesterday or this morning, that Matt Stafford has 49,995 pass yards and 323 pass touchdowns in his regular season career. This is coming from NFL research. So on the Super Bowl on February 13th, he'll break the NFL records for most pass yards and pass touchdowns by a quarterback, making his first Super Bowl appearance. So all the talk about him, kind of being wasted in Detroit, and then people saying, well, he had Calvin Johnson and whatnot. He's been very good. He's had his own, moments of where he's even this season, some pick sixes, some bad interceptions. But really just goes to show that I think what a lot of people have known, that he is one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And finally kind of getting that weight off his shoulder, the monkey off his back of winning now his first 3 playoff starts, or getting his first 3 playoff wins, I should say, and getting his team to the Super Bowl just kind of solidifies him. If he's able to get a Super Bowl coming up in a couple weeks, I'm sure the Hall of Fame debate is going to start, if it hasn't already, at that point, because it seems getting at least one Super Bowl is huge to a lot of people.
Yeah, that would definitely spruce up his resume. I mean, I think he's been, really good quarterback for a long time, as you mentioned, but certainly that's always a part of the conversation. And I think, yeah, wouldn't hurt. It definitely helped make his case. So will be interesting to see if he's able to do it, if he's able to capitalize on this opportunity. They don't come along very often as he's experienced. And so making the most of it is going to be very important to him, I'm sure.
Yep, and just 13 days to the big game. And then Joe Burrow on the other side could be the first quarterback to win, I think it was the Heisman Trophy, a national championship, and a Super Bowl. He would do it all within 3 years. So 2 quarterbacks, I guess, at completely opposite ends of the spectrum, with a guy in his second year coming off a really bad injury last year, and then Matt Stafford, who's been in the league for I don't even know how long, but quite a while, facing off against each other. Should be a great game. About 4 points is the spread right now. So putting the Rams, I think, probably around 60-ish% to win based on that. So not overwhelming favorites. Should be a great game. And as we know, those Bengals, if they're underdogs, they're not going to play like it. They're going to come out fighting, and expect that one to be close. So that will do it for our show this week. Again, we won't be here next week. We'll be back for the Super Bowl recap on February 14th on Valentine's Day. So just want to remind you, you can catch that show, all of our Monday shows, our Thursday betting previews, which will come next Thursday as well. Those can be found on the EdjSports Podcast Network or on our EdjSports YouTube. The EdjSports Podcast Network can be found on your podcast platform of choice. Again, please give us 5-star reviews. If you leave a comment between now and then, we'll read it on the next show, the Super Bowl recap. And then want to remind you as well about our site and our app experience. The app is available for both iOS and Android. And then on the site and the app, you can get NFL news articles. You can get our pregame betting insights, looking at our fair value spreads, our totals, where we think those values should be for every game of the season, with just one to go. We'll have that for the Super Bowl, but also for next year. We're always improving that as well. So be on the lookout for our updated coach rankings, again, coming out on Wednesday. And the Football Outsiders is currently running a special. They are one of our partners under the Champion Gaming brand. They're running a special for their premium subscription, which is FO Plus, for just 99 cents a week for annual subscriptions. Have a lot of really good content and analysis, fantasy, both daily and season-long fantasy throughout the season, as well as betting insights from them as well. And you can find that at footballoutsiders.com/subscribe. Scott, thanks again for joining me. Hard to believe we've just got one more of these shows coming with us in a couple weeks. We're almost all the way through the NFL season, but get ready for the Super Bowl. Hope you enjoy it. Got a couple weeks off, maybe have some downtime here with just the Pro Bowl coming up this week. And we'll talk to you here in just a couple weeks.